Open up that garage door. Hello, my friends. I am coming to you with another garage door open session so I can wear my sunglasses today. Interestingly enough, well, let's just hop into the painting and then we'll discuss it during. I think I want to bring more yellow to this. Not only because I am starting to feel better again today, but because I didn't realize I had yellow when I painted this initially, and so there wasn't enough of that to ground it in my view. Sometimes you have to like remember your own rules that you set out for yourself. Like part of building these structures for me is honoring the previous structures that came before it, and sometimes I find myself forgetting to do that. Oh, I just snapped the palette knife. Like the wood handle is broken on this. That's crazy. Well, putting a little too much emotion into that. You know, sometimes it's not even really about like doing the right perfect thing. It's about fucking up the things you don't like, and so it forces you to explore new routes. Dude, I have like very few paintbrushes today. I've gone through almost my entire set. Golly, I should have done that before recording. So, let me just say this. Right after releasing my last video, I mean really right after recording it, it started a week that was very similar to the onset of all of this. A really intense week where I had to spend most of the time in a dark room, just kind of recovering and not really doing much of anything. I don't know what it was, if it was just like that painting was really intense, or maybe I worked too hard in the days leading up to that, or I don't know what it was, but it was really intense, and so I didn't sleep. I mean, I had a really intense night one night with the FND stuff, and then the next night I realized that if I just don't let myself sleep, it doesn't happen, because it happens as I fall asleep. And so what I laid in bed from 10 p.m. until 4 a.m. and like every 15 minutes or so I'd start dozing off, and then I'd be like I'd realize, like, you know, get like a big body zap, and I'd go, oh, I can't sleep yet. And so I spent all that night just reading this. Here, I actually have it right here. I spent all that night going through this book. It's the Jean-Michel Basquiat King Pleasure book. It was from his family did an exhibit recently, and that was from like their merch store or whatever. But it has a whole bunch of his paintings and drawings and notebooks and stuff in there. And so I spent the night just like kind of flipping through that. I think I read through it like 2 or 3 times, and I watched a whole bunch of Action Bronson. Fuck, That's Delicious. It was pretty good. But finally, by 4:30 in the morning, I started to doze off, and I didn't have a body zap, and I was like, hell yeah, it's time to sleep. So then I slept, and then my sleep schedule has just been kind of fucked since then, and it's been a lot of careful recovery, I will say that. But we're getting back to it today. I've had 3 or 4 days in a row of like regular sleeps now, so like I'm starting to build some resilience enough so that I can be in front of the lights and discuss and stuff. You'll see we've made a good deal of progress on the painting, so it's not it hasn't been too much to paint with, but sometimes getting in front of the light and stuff can be a lot. Man. I think a lot of people can probably relate to this. I tend to be very much my own worst critic with these things. Now, I'm not saying that this is a good piece, but I tend to be very hard on myself until it's where I want it to be. And so I know that's unnecessary, but I do it a lot. I think a lot of people do that. The question is, how do we address it? You know, honestly, I don't know that there's some magical answer to that question. I know it's kind of an unromantic way to answer it, but I mean, like, I would say the thing for me that has been the most effective in all this is like, yeah, I do feel overwhelmed, and I do feel a lot of that you think it will, but I've done all sorts of thinking about those types of situations, and how do you deal with it, and how do you make sure that doesn't affect the art that you make and whatever. And I know it sounds like overly simplistic, but for me at least, the most effective way has been like just going and doing it anyways. Like, just literally like just not giving a shit, really. Like, just not think about it. I don't know, it sounds like way oversimplistic, and I know there's a time in my life where if somebody would have told me that, I would have been like, that's a terrible advice. How am I going to follow that? And maybe it is terrible advice, but I don't know. The further I explore things, the more I realize there's never like a a single good answer, which I've talked about time and time again on here. Which actually brings me to a point that I've just recently discovered, and it just keeps showing up time and time again, which is that I don't know that it's possible to not repeat yourself, to like have a significant amount of hours talking online about something. Because I hear like a lot of podcasters like not wanting to repeat themselves, and I understand that because like the Joe Rogan experience has just been him repeating the same 4 stories like over and over and over again, and to any guest that will listen pretty much. But like the thing with that is like you can't really like blame him either, because we are people and we only have so many experiences on this world. And so it's like, am I going to stress that much over not repeating myself when I am going to be talking for many hours? Like, I don't think it's really worth it. I don't know. Each week is an unscripted sit down and talk, so that's going to be unique just because the feeling and the vibe changes from week to week. But I don't know. I'm thinking too much about this. I need to paint. Music time. I've been getting really into old-time radio stories lately, like radio programs from the 1940s and 50s when they still had like radio dramas. And dude, those are so good. If you have Sirius XM, it's on Radio Classics on Sirius XM. That's what I've been listening to at least. But yeah, basically that station is just all like 1940s, 1950s radio dramas. And my specific favorites are like the noir ones, like the old detective stories. I like those a lot. Those are, it's like, I was thinking about this last night. There's I think this is a pretty well-known concept, and I'm not breaking any new ground here, I'm sure, but you know, there's content, like there's original content and there's meta content. Like there's the stuff that people make that's an expression of a feeling, and then there's the stuff that people make that is talking about the expressions of the feelings. And so that's like, just really quick side tangent. That's why I make the videos in the style that I do, because I'm trying to figure out a way to not just make meta content on my own painting, but also like make original content, which is expressing the actual emotions that are driving the paintings themselves. So this video between us right now becomes part of the art itself. That's my intent, at least. But my point is, the reason I started listening to these radio dramas is because I feel like it's a good passive way to consume original content. Like, you know, you can do like audiobooks and stuff like that, and audiobooks is good, but for me at least, I want to absorb all of a book, so I have to really sit down and like listen to an audiobook. So it's great if you're going for a run or something like that. Yeah, I think I got out the thought that I wanted to have. Plus, I can't even remember what I was talking about. So, yeah, anyways, let's get back to the painting. This ink stinks, dude. I think I need to do a better job with art supply maintenance. As I'm sure you can tell by the environment around me, I tend to live a little bit chaotic sometimes. But it's all very organized. There's a place for everything. There's a reason for everything. Nothing's random. But small stuff like emptying out ink gets overlooked. You know, I might completely gesso over this entire thing and start again. I might do that, but I might not. I don't know. Well, that certainly did something. I don't know what the hell that was. I still don't know if it's good or not, but it just happened. Um, oh. So I'm starting something. I hope you guys will be interested, but this is more toward the end of the video for the real OGs who watch all the way to the end of the video. Let me just come right back. New segment. It's called Album of the Week. I generally listen to music by the album. And usually each week I have like a new album that I'll rotate through. And I just figure it would be interesting to share that with you guys in case you wanted to listen to it. If you don't, there's no pressure, there's nobody forcing you to listen to it. But if you were interested at all to know what was listened to while the thing in front of you was painted, you can listen to it as well. So starting things off right, the very first album of the week is not even an album, but a playlist. When I was reading that Basquiat book, when I was up that night from 10 to 4:30, in the back of the book, the estate listed the playlist that he had put together to play in the club for his 25th birthday party. And it's 44 songs, and I took the time and effort to go through and add every single one of those songs to a playlist. And so I've been listening to that pretty much on repeat as my music choice this week. So it's a YouTube music playlist, but next week it'll be an album. Maybe I'll throw in an album just because I said it is, and it's the album of the week. But I also wanted to share with you guys that playlist. I forgot about all of these lines that I did, and I was standing over there drinking the water, and I was thinking to myself, man, I feel like something has to happen to change the energy of this painting, but I don't know that I have the full energy in me to really give to do that. And then I looked at the painting and I was like, oh, that has happened. It still needs refinement, but the energy has changed for sure. And I still might guess go over it and start again. I don't know. At this point, the way that I approach my paintings is like, before I was just cranking out as many as I possibly could, because I was to be honest, I didn't really know that much in terms of like a direction to go. So I just was trying to learn and just absorb everything from every canvas. And then as soon as it got like boring or stale or any, as soon as it became like kind of a fight, rather than practicing or attempting a technique, I just lost interest, kind of put it to the side. And so it left a lot of pieces that, in my opinion, look like half done, basically. And so what I'm trying to do now is like, I I don't want to stop until I'm really happy with the end result, until I can genuinely say that this is a good representation of the pinnacle of what I am capable of right now. I don't want to stop. And that doesn't mean that every single piece that I do is going to be to that level or is going to be even really that good. But what it does mean is that rather than taking that piece and storing it in my closet, I just immediately paint over it and fuck it up and start in a new direction, or I guess so over it and then completely start over. And yeah, that does leave remnants of the previous painting in terms of texture on the surface, but I would argue that it's kind of part of the history of the painting. It's kind of part of what makes it interesting. Why are there these bumps there? It's because of history. It's because of the things that came together to make this piece what it is in its final form. But anyways, enough of the fucking meta commentary. This is a start. And that's really all I have to say about that. I'll see you next week.